massive Ten Commandments monument that has been outside a Pennsylvania public school for 60 years is now being removed.
The reason, one complaint from an atheist mother who filed a federal lawsuit. Fox News radio host Todd Starnes is live for us in D.C. with his take on the controversy in his one-minute commentary. Good morning, Todd.
Well, good morning, guys. Yeah, the Ten Commandments is getting the heave-ho from a high school near Pittsburgh. The New Kensington Arnold School District has 30 days to remove the giant monument from the front lawn of Valley High School. It's all part of the settlement in a federal lawsuit filed by an aggrieved atheist. She tells the local newspaper the monument was a violation of the Constitution. She also said the commandments were offensive.
You're just tuning in. We are going to breaking news out of Washington.
Again, this is a developing story. There has been an explosion.
Absolutely shocking.
Those protests happening overnight over the White House's transgender rights decision. We will hear from the inauguration singer Jackie Evancho and her transgender sister in just a moment. But first, ABC's senior White House correspondent Cecilia Vega has the very latest on all of that. Good morning, Cecilia.
Amy, good morning to you. Donald Trump campaigned on being a friend of the gay community, but so many this morning saying that late night move from the White House here sets back protections for transgender people. Overnight, protesters taking their battle cry for transgender rights directly to the White House.
Shame on Trump! Protect the trans students!
Accusing the Trump administration of delivering a major blow.
Trans equality now!
In a late-night decision, the White House reversed guidelines issued under President Obama. Public schools no longer required to allow transgender students to use the bathroom of their choice.
The president's made it clear throughout the campaign that he's a firm believer in states' rights and that certain issues like this are not best dealt with at the federal level.
Top Democrats calling the reversal just plain wrong and saying civil rights are not confusing. Jackie Evancho, who sang at President Trump's inauguration and whose sister is transgender, tweeting, "You gave me the honor to sing at your inauguration. Please give me and my sis the honor to meet with you to talk transgender rights." The issue even pitting two key members of the president's cabinet against each other. Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos saying, "We have a responsibility to protect every student in America. This is not merely a federal mandate, but a moral obligation." While Attorney General Jeff Sessions said the Department of Justice has a duty to enforce the law, adding it remains committed to its protections for all students, including LGBTQ students. Stuck in the middle, students like Gavin Grimm. Born female, his Virginia school district banned him from using the boys' bathroom. His case now headed to the Supreme Court.
We will not be beaten down by this administration or any.
The president was asked at one point, Caitlyn Jenner was in Trump Tower, and he said, that's great. That's consistent with everything he said. It's a states' rights issue. And that's entirely what he believes, that if a state wants to pass a law or a rule, or an organization wants to do something in compliance with the state rule, that's their right. But it shouldn't be the federal government getting in the way of this.
When Congress passed the Civil Rights Act in Title IX, they never contemplated that sex would mean gender identity. It's not in the bill. It's not what the bill says. It's not what the law says. And so we think that the directive that the Obama administration issued about interpreting sex as meaning gender identity is wrong, and it should be repealed.
Yeah, that big protest here overnight. Now, this order does include language requiring schools to protect transgender students from bullying. But, George, this is being viewed as a major setback for transgender rights.
Although the effects of climate change may not be readily apparent in some parts of the world, in Dakar, the battle has already begun. Coastal erosion is currently wreaking havoc on the city's peninsula that stretches into the Atlantic. According to a 2013 report, by 2080, more than 300 buildings and 60% of its beaches could be gone. However, the Senegalese capital of around 2.5 million people is fighting back with the so-called resilience strategy. The Rockefeller Foundation has allocated $164 million to a 100 Resilient Cities program, which will fund a chief resilience officer for each day in the program to draw up a plan and provide support and expertise.
Heavy rain and severe flooding slamming California, where there are reports of at least 8 deaths. Thousands are forced from their homes as creeks and reservoirs overflow, sending floodwaters into neighborhoods. What you're seeing is moments ago in San Jose, California, that's south of San Francisco. North of San Francisco is where we find the Oroville Dam. And Alicia Acuna is there, where residents near that damaged spillway are finally getting some relief. And Alicia is here with an update. Alicia?
Hi, Jenna. Yes, and we're going to start down south where folks are dealing with that flooding. 14,000 people are under mandatory evacuation, and the fire department down there says they're not only dealing with trying to get people out of their homes in this moving water. That water is filled with debris and may be contaminated. The fire captain says that anyone who comes out of the water is required to go to the hospital to get checked and to be decontaminated because the flood water could contain gasoline, sewage, and motor oil. And because of that, city workers from San Jose were going door to door telling residents that they needed to wait to be taken out by boat. But rather than wait for rescue, some decided to walk out. All of this water coming from the Coyote Creek, which overflowed after runoff poured over the Anderson Spillway.
I left for school, take my daughter to school, and then I come back and I see all of this. I'm like, what's going on? It happened real fast.
Lake Berryessa is filled beyond capacity, so a huge amount of water is literally flowing down the drain. Maria Villarreal shows us the phenomenon that hasn't been seen in more than a decade.
First the rain, now the drain. California's wet winter has pushed Lake Berryessa way beyond capacity, pouring water into its bathtub-like drain. It's the first time that's happened in 11 years.
Back in October, we were essentially half full. This is the first time that the lake has been so low and filled up and spilled in 1 year.
What looks calm at the top of the Morning Glory Spillway, as it's called, looks like a raging torrent at the bottom. The spillway is located 200 feet from the Monticello Dam. It's shaped like a funnel, 72 feet wide at its lip and narrowing to 28 feet at an outlet down at the Puda Creek. When water in the lake rises to more than 440 feet above sea level, it spills over the lip of this funnel and pours into the creek 700 feet below.
When this reservoir reaches its capacity, this spillway can take in about 48,000 cubic feet of water per second. That's the equivalent to draining half an Olympic-sized pool in just 1 second.
This is what the drain has looked like during California's drought, so dry that it became an unofficial skateboard park. The water started trickling in on Friday. Now it's become a bit of a tourist destination. You might say a holy pilgrimage.
On Avalon Drive in Stewart, where a brush fire recently threatened homes.
It's really dry.
Even after 2 inches of rainfall.
Both Bill and Mary Sofield say they're still concerned. Their yard bone dry even after significant rainfall.
Quickly dissipated, so, you know, we're hoping and keeping our fingers crossed.
Turns out even after Wednesday's rain, Palm Beach, Martin, St. Lucie, Indian River, and Okeechobee County are all in a severe drought. Even Okeechobee County announced a burn ban today.
You have a lot of flammable fuel.
Scott Petrick with the Florida Forest Service said the drought index had only a minor drop, still at alarming levels. The South Florida Water Management District is reporting even after yesterday, Rainfall is still 6 inches below average for the dry season. Petrick says conditions are still ripe for another repeat of last week in Martin County.
If something happens where a person accidentally starts a fire, the fire definitely would carry. We have a little bit of wind, and still we're in these drying conditions. A wildfire could pose a threat to structures and also our highways, too.
Been dry for months.
Sofield's taking that into account and hoping more rain is in the forecast.
Have to be aware and do what they tell you and hope for the best.
Now, the South Florida Water Management District continues to ask homeowners and businesses to conserve water, take short showers, and limit irrigation.
CNN reports that in a Thursday speech in Rome, the Pope said it might be better to be an atheist than a Christian who exploits people, leads a double life, gets involved in dirty business, and scandalizes the church. Examples of such scandals abound, the Pope said, adding that they erode the church and the guilty Christian from within by causing others to sin and lose faith. Francis's sermon, as is customary, was an extended riff on Thursday's Mass readings, which include a passage from the Gospel on Mark, in which Jesus says it is better to be drowned than to cause others to sin.
I'm Mike Pence. I'm the Vice President of the United States of America. I spoke words earlier today in St. Louis that were from the heart. There is no place in America for hatred or acts of prejudice or violence or anti-Semitism. I must tell you, the people of Missouri are inspiring the nation by your love and care for this place, for the Jewish community in Missouri, and I want to thank you for that inspiration, for showing the world what America is really all about.
In a little over 24 hours, an online fundraiser for Muslims to donate to repair vandalism at a Jewish cemetery raised over $100,000. The fundraiser was launched after 180 gravestones were toppled, some broken, just outside St. Louis, Missouri over the weekend. Linda Sauersauer of Empower Change and Celebrate Mercy's Tarek El Masidi set up the fundraiser, which collected $20,000 in donations in its first 3 hours alone. Sauersauer said, "People in a cemetery should be able to rest in peace." On MSNBC Wednesday, she also said she expected nothing less from my community, who has always been a generous community.
Police in Anaheim, California arrested about 24 people overnight during violent protests. Hundreds of people flooded the streets one day after an off-duty officer fired his gun during a dispute with teenagers. Video shows one protester being hit by a beanbag and officers making arrests. The confrontation that triggered the demonstration was captured by a cell phone camera. You heard that sound. The off-duty officer can be seen firing his gun while pulling one teenager through some bushes. Police say he was upset about kids constantly stepping on his property. Carter Evans shows us how the confrontation escalated.
Let me go for the last time.
Cell phone video captured the moment the fight escalates. The man in the sunglasses is an off-duty LAPD officer. He has his hands on a 13-year-old student who can be heard yelling that he's a minor.
Let me go, you're sitting on my chair.
Police say the off-duty officer, who lives along a popular route to 3 local schools, was increasingly frustrated with kids walking across his property. Tuesday afternoon, he confronted them.
Did you hear?
At one point, the 13-year-old tries to get away and his friends intervene, knocking the officer down. That's when he grabs a gun from his waistband and pulls the trigger. No one was hit. 13-year-old Christian, who asked us not to show his face, said he was sticking up for a classmate.
This girl passes his lawn, goes on his lawn, and he's like, get off my lawn.
Christian has cuts and bruises from the fight.
I thought he was gonna shoot me, and I thought he was gonna shoot me, and I was scared, I thought I was gonna die.
Christian and a 15-year-old were arrested at the scene, but released pending further charges. For CBS This Morning, Carter Evans, Los Angeles.
The off-duty officer has been placed on administrative leave while the LAPD investigates. He alleges the teenager, Christian, said he would shoot him. Christian says he was only threatened to sue him.
Tensions running high at the pipeline protest camp in North Dakota. Activists setting a huge fire as they fight to stay with a deadline to clear the site just hours away. National correspondent William Lajeunesse is live for us in Cannonball, North Dakota. William, what is going on here?
Well, Abby, let me tell you, the fire that you see in the distance, those are intentionally set, the idea being that it will be easier to take those things out as ash than a bulldozer and a dump truck. But, you know, the protesters here, they lost when Donald Trump won. Donald Trump, of course, approved the pipeline that President Obama had halted. And that means, for all intents and purposes, the protest is over. And both the governor as well as the Standing Rock Sioux tribe have told the protesters to go home. It is over. The governor has an emergency evacuation order that takes effect today at 2 p.m. Now, two interesting caveats. There is going to be an amnesty bus. So protesters will be offered to get on that bus. They'll go to a transition center. We'll get a voucher for a hotel night and a bus ticket anywhere in the United States. Secondly, there'll be a ceremonial arrest for those individuals who want to be able to tell their friends that they were arrested, get a photo taken, put it on their social media sites. The cops will accommodate them for the next several days. Now, for the hardcore guys who want to be charged with a crime, we spoke to some of them. They said, well, we lost the war, but we don't regret the fight.
I'm terribly sad. I'm terribly sad. You know, it's not just a pipeline thing. You know, these people have been pushed around for centuries, right? They've been trampled over, you know.
According to state officials, you know, a lot of the protesters are frankly broke, and so they think it's a humane thing to do to give them the night in the hotel, the bus ticket, and to let them out. After all, Abby, this is North Dakota. People here are really nice. Abby?
Yeah, but they're asking them to leave because all that snow, as we can see behind you, it could melt, saying that it could cause flooding. How bad are those conditions?
Well, right now it's cold and snowy, and it looks probably better than it really is, because that place down there is a dump. It was basically a small city with, 10,000 people at any one time over the course of the last 7 months. But the waters are rising, the snow is melting. It's been an unusually warm winter, and these campsites are literally in a floodplain. And what do you got down there? You've got propane and kerosene heaters, diesel and gas generators. You've got teepees, yurts, bunkhouses, and of course mountains of human waste as well. And that bacteria they fear is going to get into the river. If you look at that graphic, you'll see that those campsites are literally built in the floodplain. And when the Cannonball River rises, and then that bacteria would go into the river, that's what they don't want to occur.